All right, here we are. It's September 26th, 2013, and we're here to dedicate a new marker for Calvin Lee Mooney. Calvin Lee Mooney had a Confederate soldier marker that had his initials and his name, his military unit, but we wanted to have a marker that showed his birth and death dates and his full name and acknowledged him as more than a soldier, as being a member of a extended family and a community in his church. So we're going to have a brief ceremony. Present today are Norma Jean Howell, Dana Stibe, Ray Armstrong, Tom Mooney, and myself, Alan Stibe. Almost all of us being great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren of Calvin Lee Mooney and Elizabeth C.L. So Dana, I'm going to ask you to take over the video. It's going now.
Yeah.
So. All right, it was Norma Jean's suggestion that in dedicating the marker that we read the obituary, because how better to dedicate this marker than to say the words of somebody that actually knew him. And apparently this was actually written by John W. Minor, who was, with him in the Civil War. Not in the same unit, but with him in the Civil War. And this says all that we need to know about what Calvin Lee Mooney was. In memory of Calvin Lee Mooney, died at his home near Mount Calvary Church in Shelby County, Alabama, on the 15th of November, 1906. Calvin Mooney. He was one of Shelby's best known and highly esteemed citizens. As a father, ask his children. As a citizen, ask his neighbors and friends who have known him these long years. As a soldier, ask his comrades who stood by him in that strife which tried men's souls. He was a member of the 29th Alabama Regiment, Company E, at the long to be remembered by those who wore the gray Battle of Franklin, Tennessee. His color bearer was shot down. He seized the battle flag from his dead comrade's hand and bore it aloft until his own strong arm was shattered, and not until he fell bleeding did he let it fall. Sad to know that men of deeds of such double daring like Calvin Mooney are rapidly passing away. But their memory will be kept warm by generations unborn. As a Christian, he died as he had lived, trusting him who was able to save. Calvin Mooney was born in Mississippi and was near 77 years old. He leaves a host of relatives and friends to mourn their loss, which is his gain. How suggestive. When the roll is called up yonder, will we all be there? A friend in the November 22nd, 1906 Shelby County Sentinel. I just want to add that his friend obviously didn't know that he was from South Carolina. He was actually born in South Carolina and not Mississippi, just so we're correcting this for posterity.
So many came out of South Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah.
He came into this part of the country.
Yeah. Am I done?
I'm not a Christian. Would anybody like to say a few words? If not, we'll leave it at that.
Norma Jean?
The only thing that I would like to add is that I am very, very appreciative to be a distant great-granddaughter of Calvin Lee Mooney, and to know that I am from his heritage here in the Chelsea area.
What relation are you now? You got to be your grandson down the road somewhere, ain't you?
Oh, that's right. Norma Jean, you state how you're related to Calvin Lee Mooney, and then we'll ask the others to do the same.
Calvin Lee Mooney was my great-grandfather. My grandfather was Marlin Mooney. My mother was Johnny Lucille Mooney Harper.
Oh, yeah. All right, Ray, if you don't mind, for the video here, tell us your connection to Calvin Lee Mooney.
Calvin Lee Mooney is my great-grandfather. His daughter, Nancy, is my grandmother. That's why we're related all the way back through, 1800s. So I'm very proud to be here today to dedicate this to him.
All right, Tom?
Well, actually, Calvin Lee Mooney's son, John Lee Mooney, was my grandfather, and his son, Ed Mooney, was my dad, and so Calvin Lee is my great-grandfather, and proud to be here. Thank you.
Looks like I get to be the youngster then.
Yeah.
My great-great-grandfather.
Okay. Hey,
So,
that's good. That's
His son, him and Elizabeth C.L. Mooney's son, Thomas Mooney, another Tom Mooney. In fact, interestingly enough, Thomas Jefferson Mooney. He was born in 1876, 10 years after, or 11 years after the end of the Civil War, and his father named him after Thomas Jefferson, father and mother. So I think that was an interesting, I'm sure there was some reason we'll never know, but that's an interesting little tidbit there. Anyway, Thomas Jefferson Mooney was actually making moonshine here in Shelby County in 1901, just after getting married to Laura Richardson, who was from Coosa across the river. They caught him making moonshine. He hid out in the woods for apparently several weeks. They didn't leave, so he got on a train in Birmingham, took the train to Texas. He was working in Texas setting telephone poles, telegraph lines along the railroad line, and ended up settling in Dublin, Texas. Now, whether, the fact that it was called Dublin and he was, of good Irish stock, I don't know. But, so Tom Mooney settled in Texas and had a farm there. His son, Preston Mooney, is my grandfather, and his daughter, Beverly Jean Mooney, was my mother. So Calvin Lee Mooney is my great-great-great-grandfather. His son, Thomas Jefferson Mooney, his son, Preston Lionel Mooney, his daughter, Beverly Jean Mooney, and then myself. And we had 4 kids in our family that were descended from Preston Mooney and his wife, and then Beverly Jean Mooney and my father, David Martin Stein. Anyway, Dan and I, all of us are proud and happy to be playing a role in setting this marker today. And it's just wonderful to know, as it says in here, be remembered by future generations. That's us. And we're the ones that haven't forgotten. We're the ones that remember the people that settled this land and made it the prosperous place and wonderful, peaceful place that we live, and wish that everybody in the world could have the kind of opportunity and the kind of peace that we have. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Great.